Understanding the root causes of disrespect is the foundation upon which all efforts to regain respect must be built. For many seniors, especially those who have raised their children with love and sacrifice, it can be deeply hurtful and confusing to suddenly feel disrespected. But it's essential to pause and ask, where is this behavior coming from? Is it truly about you, or is it a reflection of something else? Research in family psychology suggests that disrespectful behavior in adult children often stems not from malice, but from unresolved emotional patterns, unspoken expectations, or even stressors in their own lives. Sometimes the shift begins subtly. Children grow up, gain independence, and unconsciously begin to see their parents as fallible, human, and no longer in control. In the absence of open dialogue, this transition can create a power vacuum that leads to passive aggression, disregard, or even blatant disrespect. In some cases, adult children may harbor resentment from past events, whether real or perceived, and allow that to poison the present relationship. For others, it may be a result of stress, anxiety, or pressure from their own roles as spouses, parents, or professionals. It's not uncommon for adult children to project their frustrations onto their parents, using sarcasm, avoidance, or curt language as a misplaced outlet for their own internal battles. Understanding these psychological underpinnings is not about excusing bad behavior. Rather, it empowers you to respond with clarity instead of confusion, strength instead of sorrow. Clinical studies show that when parents view their children's disrespect as a mirror of deeper emotional currents rather than as a personal attack, they experience lower stress levels and greater emotional resilience. This mindset shift is critical. Instead of reacting with hurt or defensiveness, you begin to see patterns and motives. For example, is your child consistently disrespectful only during times of financial stress? Is their tone of voice harsher when discussing certain topics, like inheritance, independence, or caregiving responsibilities? These patterns are important clues. They suggest that the disrespect may be situational, not chronic. And if it's situational, it can be addressed and corrected. Another crucial factor to consider is how roles have changed over time. Seniors often move from being caregivers and providers to becoming more dependent on their adult children for certain forms of support, whether emotional, logistical, or even financial. This role reversal can be jarring for both parties. Your child may not know how to navigate this change with grace. You might still speak to them as if they are children, while they see themselves as fully grown adults with their own families and obligations. This mismatch in perception can create tension, particularly if you continue old habits of correction, unsolicited advice, or attempts to manage their decisions. While well-intentioned, these behaviors can trigger resistance or backlash. Health psychology studies have shown that when adult children perceive their parents as controlling, even subtly, it leads to increased conflict and lower relationship satisfaction. The key is awareness, catching yourself in these moments and recalibrating your approach. There's also a societal lens to consider. In many Western cultures, aging is wrongly associated with decline and irrelevance. Unlike in some Eastern societies where elders are revered, seniors here are often sidelined or underestimated. This cultural undercurrent can influence the way your children view and treat you, even if unintentionally. It may manifest as condescension, dismissiveness, or the assumption that you're out of touch. But don't let this discourage you. Instead, use it as a prompt to demonstrate your continued growth, awareness, and dignity. Let your children see that age has not diminished your value, it has refined it. When you approach conversations with wisdom, patience, and strength, you subtly remind them of your enduring worth. Also, consider your emotional energy. Seniors who feel disrespected often experience a drop in confidence and motivation, which in turn can cause them to withdraw from meaningful interactions. This creates a vicious cycle. The less you engage, the more your children feel they can dismiss you. But when you approach your family interactions with emotional clarity, prepared responses, and firm but respectful expectations, the dynamic begins to shift. Health studies have found that seniors who practice mindfulness and stress regulation techniques report fewer family conflicts and a greater sense of respect from their adult children. You can start by journaling your feelings, meditating, or simply preparing calm responses to common triggers. Instead of reacting with anger when disrespected, say something like, "I'd appreciate being spoken to with kindness. I respect you and expect the same." Simple, direct language can work wonders. In summary, uncovering the root causes of your child's disrespect is not about blaming or shaming. It's about empowering yourself with insight. By understanding the emotional, psychological, and social dynamics at play, you're no longer just reacting, you're responding with intention. You begin to recognize which actions are about you and which are about them. And once you have that clarity, you're ready to take the next step toward regaining the respect you deserve. Rebuilding respect through calm, assertive communication is perhaps one of the most transformative steps a senior can take when trying to restore healthy dynamics with their adult children. Communication is more than just exchanging words. It's about expressing your value, setting the tone of mutual understanding, and showing that your voice still matters. In relationships where respect has been diminished, words can become either weapons or bridges. For many seniors, especially those who have spent decades guiding and supporting their families, being spoken to dismissively or ignored feels deeply unjust. However, it's crucial not to meet disrespect with equal force. Reacting with raised voices, sarcasm, or emotional outbursts can often make the situation worse. Studies in family communication show that emotional escalation often leads to entrenched defensiveness, creating a cycle where both sides feel unheard. That's why calm assertiveness becomes your greatest tool. It allows you to claim your dignity without compromising your peace. Calm, assertive communication begins with preparation. Before engaging in any potentially difficult conversation, take time to regulate your emotions. Deep breathing exercises, brief meditation, or even writing down what you want to say can help organize your thoughts. This doesn't mean suppressing your feelings. It means giving them a strong, steady voice. When you speak to your children, use I statements instead of you accusations. For example, say, "I feel hurt when I'm interrupted or spoken to with sarcasm," rather than, "You're always so rude to me." This subtle change reduces the chance of defensiveness and invites your child into a conversation rather than a confrontation. Behavioral psychology emphasizes the importance of tone and pacing. Speaking slowly, maintaining eye contact, and keeping your body language open can all convey confidence and calm without appearing aggressive or passive. Many seniors fall into a pattern of either avoiding confrontation altogether or expressing themselves only when pushed to an emotional limit. Neither approach fosters lasting respect. Avoidance allows disrespect to continue unchecked, while emotional outbursts often overshadow the valid points you're trying to make. Instead, approach conversations proactively. If your child cuts you off or speaks in a condescending tone, calmly say, "Please let me finish what I was saying. I want to be heard just as I'm listening to you." These types of statements affirm your self-worth and model the very respect you are requesting. Over time, consistently using such language can reshape the dynamic. Neuropsychological studies suggest that repeated calm interactions can rewire the emotional tone of relationships, especially within families, where old patterns often run deep. Listening is also a vital part of assertive communication. While it may feel frustrating to hear your child express anger or criticism, allowing them space to speak can reveal underlying issues you weren't aware of. Active listening, nodding, asking clarifying questions, and summarizing what they say signals that you take them seriously. When people feel heard, they are more likely to reciprocate that attention. This creates an opening for mutual understanding. However, listening does not mean agreeing. You can acknowledge your child's feelings while still holding your ground. For instance, saying, "I understand you've been stressed, but that doesn't make it okay to speak to me harshly," balances empathy with self-respect. It shows you're emotionally available, but not emotionally vulnerable to mistreatment. It's also important to time your conversations wisely. Don't try to address serious matters in the middle of a holiday dinner or when tensions are already high. Choose a quiet moment when both of you are more likely to be receptive. Planning ahead shows that the issue matters to you and deserves the attention of a focused setting. Research in interpersonal communication indicates that timing plays a crucial role in how messages are received. A well-timed conversation can be the difference between progress and pushback. Moreover, be clear about your expectations. If certain behaviors, such as yelling, sarcasm, or ignoring, are off limits, say so plainly. For example, "I won't continue this conversation if I'm being shouted at," sets a firm boundary without threatening or scolding. Use repetition as reinforcement. Children, no matter their age, often need to hear things more than once for the message to truly sink in, especially when trying to correct long-standing dynamics. If you calmly restate your expectations every time a boundary is crossed, you're training them to take your words seriously. This is a process, not a one-time fix. Studies in behavioral reinforcement have shown that consistent, respectful reminders are more effective than occasional emotional confrontations. Over time, these reminders become a new normal. If your child shuts down or refuses to talk, don't chase them emotionally. Give them space, but reaffirm your readiness to talk when they are. Say something like, "I'm here when you're ready to have a respectful conversation." This shows strength and patience. It puts the responsibility for communication back on both parties. Additionally, avoid using guilt as a communication tool. Phrases like, "After all I've done for you," might feel justified, but they often backfire, making the other person feel manipulated rather than motivated. Instead, focus on present behaviors and their impact, not past sacrifices. You might also consider using writing as a supplemental tool. A heartfelt letter or email, carefully crafted, free of accusations, and focused on emotions and solutions, can sometimes reach someone in ways that spoken words cannot. This is particularly helpful if your child tends to interrupt or becomes defensive during live conversations. A written message allows them to reflect without the pressure of a real-time response. Finally, remember that assertiveness is not about demanding control. It's about commanding respect. It's about creating a dialogue where your feelings matter just as much as anyone else's. By communicating calmly, clearly, and consistently, you begin to dismantle toxic patterns and lay the groundwork for a more respectful, reciprocal relationship. And with each new conversation handled with grace and strength, you remind your child, and yourself, that your voice is still powerful and deserving of honor. Establishing healthy boundaries and reinforcing them consistently is one of the most powerful ways to regain respect from adult children, especially when communication has turned dismissive or hurtful. Boundaries are not about pushing others away. They are about defining where you end and another person begins, emotionally and behaviorally. When boundaries are vague or non-existent, relationships can become chaotic, confusing, and deeply frustrating. Many seniors were raised in generations that valued sacrifice and selflessness, sometimes to the point of personal neglect. While those qualities can be admirable, they can also lead to blurred lines in family dynamics, especially when children grow into adults and begin making their own life choices. If you've always prioritized their needs above your own, they may have unconsciously come to expect that dynamic to continue indefinitely. This imbalance can lead to a lack of appreciation, and over time to outright disrespect. Research in family systems theory shows that healthy boundaries create emotional safety, promote mutual respect, and reduce conflict over time. The key is not just setting them, but reinforcing them firmly and consistently. Boundaries must be clear and specific to be effective. Vague comments like, "I don't like how you talk to me," can easily be brushed aside or misinterpreted. Instead, use language that defines both the behavior you won't tolerate and the consequence of crossing that line. For instance, if I'm being yelled at, "I will leave the room until we can speak calmly," is a boundary that teaches others how you expect to be treated. It's not about controlling their behavior. It's about controlling your response to it. Consistency is what gives boundaries their strength. If you set a limit but don't follow through every time it's tested, you send mixed signals that weaken your position. Studies in behavioral psychology emphasize that inconsistency in enforcing limits often encourages others to test them more frequently. When your adult child sees that you uphold your boundaries every time, they begin to adapt to the new dynamic. Many seniors fear setting boundaries because they worry it will create distance or lead to being cut off entirely. While that fear is understandable, it's important to recognize that relationships built on guilt or fear are not healthy in the first place. Respect cannot grow in a space where one person feels they must tolerate mistreatment just to keep the peace. Boundaries, when implemented with calm firmness, actually draw people closer in the long run by creating a structure where both parties feel emotionally safe. Adult children, especially those who are used to dominating conversations or disregarding your preferences, may initially resist these changes. They might accuse you of being dramatic or overly sensitive. This resistance is normal. It's part of the process of adjustment. But remember, their discomfort does not invalidate your need for dignity and self-respect. Let them be uncomfortable. Let them push back. Then, calmly repeat your boundary. Start small if you need to. Boundaries can begin with the way you allow yourself to be spoken to. If sarcasm, criticism, or raised voices have become normal in your interactions, set a clear rule that such tones will not be tolerated. Walk away from the conversation if necessary. You are not obligated to stay in situations that compromise your emotional well-being. Over time, these micro-boundaries add up to a major shift in the relationship. Other boundaries might involve time, availability, or responsibilities. For instance, if you're always expected to babysit on short notice or lend money without acknowledgement, you can say, "I love helping when I can, but I need at least 48 hours notice." Or, "I'm not in a position to provide financial support right now." These statements are not selfish, they are healthy and mature. It's important to remember that boundaries are not ultimatums. They are not about punishing others, they are about protecting your peace. When you set a boundary, do so without anger or resentment. Speak plainly without over-explaining or apologizing. Adults who love and respect you will learn to accept your boundaries. Those who don't may try to guilt-trip or manipulate you, but that only further confirms why those boundaries are necessary in the first place. Emotional resilience studies show that people who maintain strong personal boundaries report lower levels of anxiety, depression, and emotional fatigue, especially within family relationships. They feel empowered because they no longer feel helpless in the face of others' behavior. This is the kind of empowerment you deserve in your senior years. Not just peace and quiet, but peace of mind. Reinforcing boundaries requires self-trust. You must believe in the validity of your needs, even if others don't agree with them. One way to strengthen this self-trust is to keep a simple journal. Write down each time a boundary is crossed and how you responded. Reflect on what worked and what you want to improve. This practice reinforces your internal compass and helps you stay grounded when conversations become emotionally charged. It also allows you to track progress over time. You may begin to notice that certain disrespectful behaviors happen less often, or that your child is starting to pause before speaking dismissively. These small signs indicate that the power of your boundaries is taking root. In some cases, your boundaries may include limiting or even pausing contact with a child who refuses to respect your emotional space. This can be an excruciating decision, but sometimes it is necessary for healing to begin. Make it clear that the door is open when respect is restored, but until then, you're choosing your peace. Healing from disrespect doesn't always happen quickly, but it does happen more reliably when the rules of engagement are clear. Your home, your heart, and your mind are sacred. Treat them that way and teach others to do the same. Boundaries may feel uncomfortable at first, but in time, they become a natural extension of self-love. When you stop allowing others to cross lines that diminish you, you teach them how to meet you with the honor you deserve. Modeling the respect you want to receive, leading by example, is a principle that carries immense power, especially for seniors seeking to restore dignity within strained relationships. Children, regardless of age, absorb far more from your actions than from your words. If you ask for respect but carry yourself with self-doubt, inconsistency, or passive resentment, your message becomes diluted. But when you consistently demonstrate respectful communication, emotional control, and personal integrity, you silently teach others how to treat you. This is not about being perfect, it's about being intentional. Behavioral science confirms that people mirror the emotional tone of those around them. If you maintain calm confidence even when provoked, others are more likely to mirror that behavior over time. In families where tensions run high, someone has to take the emotional lead. As a parent, even a senior one, you still have the opportunity to be that example, not through lectures, but through how you carry yourself during moments of conflict or misunderstanding. Modeling respect begins with how you speak, not just to your children, but about them and yourself. When you catch yourself using belittling language or expressing bitterness to others, pause and consider the long-term impact. While it's healthy to process your pain with trusted confidants, consistently talking about your child with sarcasm or contempt reinforces a narrative of victimhood and powerlessness. Instead, shift your language toward solutions and values. Speak about your expectations, your healing process, and your efforts to rebuild, not just their faults. This mental shift allows you to stay in control of your narrative and keeps your dignity intact. Respect starts in the mind before it reaches the mouth. How you think shapes how you speak, and how you speak shapes how others perceive your worth. Physical presence also communicates respect. Posture, grooming, tone of voice, and eye contact are subtle yet powerful indicators of self-regard. Seniors often face unfair stereotypes of weakness or irrelevance, but the way you present yourself can challenge those assumptions. Dress in a way that makes you feel confident, speak with clarity, and carry yourself with poise. These are not superficial gestures. They send a message: I value myself, and you should too. Health psychology studies show that people who maintain self-care routines experience higher self-esteem and are more likely to receive respect in interpersonal interactions. You are never too old to assert your worth through how you show up in the world. When disagreements arise, lead with restraint and clarity. Avoid the temptation to engage in shouting matches, passive-aggressive remarks, or silent treatments. These reactions are often modeled by adult children who saw them in the household growing up. If you want the pattern to stop, you must be the one to break it. That might mean saying, I'd like us to revisit this conversation when we're both calm, or even ending a call respectfully when things become toxic. Doing so models emotional maturity, something many people never learn unless it's demonstrated to them. Emotional regulation is a skill, not a personality trait. You can model it in your 60s, 70s, and beyond, and it will still make a lasting impression on those around you. One of the most overlooked forms of modeling respect is how you handle your own mistakes. If you raised your voice, spoke out of frustration, or acted in ways that contributed to the tension, acknowledge it openly. Say, I regret how I handled that conversation. I was upset, but I want to do better. This kind of humility is not weakness, it's leadership. It shows that respect is not a one-way street and that you hold yourself to the same standards you expect from others. Research in interpersonal repair shows that relationships heal faster when both parties feel that accountability is mutual. Your willingness to own your flaws paves the way for your child to do the same. Maintaining respect also involves honoring your child's autonomy. As hard as it may be, especially when you disagree with their choices, try to give advice only when it is asked for or ask permission before offering it. This small shift reinforces that you see them as independent adults, and in return, they are more likely to treat you with the respect reserved for fellow adults rather than dependent elders. You may find that by respecting their emotional space, they begin to respect yours. This reciprocity forms the foundation of mature, respectful relationships. Parenting may have begun with authority, but in adulthood, it thrives on mutual respect. Another powerful way to model respect is by maintaining your own standards, regardless of how others behave. If your child uses hurtful language or engages in manipulative behavior, respond with calm detachment. Don't stoop to their level. Don't retaliate. Hold your ground. Show them what grace under pressure looks like. This doesn't mean tolerating abuse. It means standing firm in your values without becoming emotionally reactive. Over time, this consistency becomes undeniable. Your presence begins to command respect not because you demanded it, but because you embodied it. In addition to one-on-one interactions, model respect in family gatherings and group settings. Speak positively about people, avoid gossip, and take the high road in conflicts. When others see you acting with integrity, even under stress, it leaves an impression. It may not always be acknowledged in the moment, but it builds a silent reputation that influences how others treat you. Family systems theory emphasizes that even one person changing their behavior can shift the entire family dynamic over time. Be that catalyst, not for approval but for peace. Lastly, remember that leading by example does not guarantee instant results. Adult children, especially those set in their ways, may take time to adjust to the new version of you. They may test you, ignore the change, or even resist it outright. Don't let that discourage you. Modeling respect is a long game. It's about consistency over weeks, months, and years. It's about building a legacy that teaches others what respect truly looks like, even when it's difficult. By embodying dignity in your words, your actions, and your presence, you silently, but powerfully, invite others to rise to your level. And with time, many will. Reclaiming authority through emotional independence and self-care is a powerful and often overlooked strategy for restoring respect in relationships where it has eroded. When adult children see that their parent is emotionally dependent on them for validation, affection, or identity, it can shift the power dynamic in unhealthy ways. This doesn't mean you should be cold or distant. It means your sense of worth should not fluctuate based on how your children treat you. Emotional independence is about owning your value, whether or not others acknowledge it. In fact, studies in geriatric psychology show that seniors who cultivate emotional autonomy experience greater life satisfaction, stronger mental health, and more balanced relationships with their children. The goal is to move from needing respect to embodying it so clearly that others naturally begin to offer it in return. This shift doesn't require confrontation. It requires internal realignment. One of the most effective ways to cultivate emotional independence is through meaningful self-care. Not just surface-level pampering, but deep, nurturing practices that restore your physical, emotional, and mental well-being. This might include starting a walking routine, joining a local community group, meditating daily, or seeing a therapist to process years of accumulated stress. These acts are not indulgences. They're investments in your clarity and strength. When your children see that you have a rich inner life, that your days are full of activity, learning, and self-respect, it shifts how they interact with you. People respect those who respect themselves. This kind of personal fulfillment also removes the subtle pressure you may place on your children to fulfill your emotional needs, which often results in resentment and distance. Emotional independence also means choosing how you respond, rather than being ruled by others' behavior. If your adult child says something hurtful or passive-aggressive, you have the right to pause, reflect, and respond from a place of dignity, not from desperation for approval or connection. Over time, this restraint becomes a form of strength that others begin to recognize. Neuroscience research on aging and emotional intelligence reveals that older adults often have the capacity to regulate emotion more effectively than younger individuals, but this strength must be practiced regularly. You have a lifetime of wisdom. Use it to create emotional boundaries that protect your peace. Remember, you do not have to attend every argument you're invited to. Self-care also involves your social world. Isolation can feed emotional dependence, especially when your main interactions are limited to family. Build friendships, engage with peers, participate in interest-based groups, or volunteer in your community. These connections reduce the emotional burden placed solely on your children and reintroduce joy into your life from sources outside the family. Studies in senior wellness show that social engagement increases cognitive longevity and reduces depression and anxiety, both of which are commonly worsened in situations of familial disrespect. The more full your life becomes outside the home, the less power your child's words or behavior hold over you. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you start prioritizing your mental and emotional health first. Financial independence, where possible, is also tied closely to emotional autonomy. While many seniors are on fixed incomes, budgeting wisely, avoiding unnecessary financial entanglements with children, and maintaining some level of economic agency can protect against manipulation or guilt-driven dynamics. When money is exchanged within families without clear boundaries or expectations, it often becomes a source of tension. If your adult child has come to rely on you for financial support but shows you little respect, it may be time to reevaluate the arrangement. Offering help is generous, but enabling disrespect under the guise of assistance ultimately harms both parties. Assert your limits with grace, and if needed, involve a financial advisor or mediator to ensure clarity and fairness in all financial dealings. Another form of self-care is learning to enjoy solitude. Being alone does not mean being lonely. Use quiet time to reflect, pursue interests, read, garden, learn a new skill, or simply rest. The ability to enjoy your own company is a powerful antidote to feeling emotionally hostage to others' approval. It tells your children, and yourself, that your happiness is not contingent on their validation. This emotional stability often leads to a surprising effect. When you stop chasing after connection and approval, others begin to chase after you. Respect grows when people see that you are not dependent on them to feel whole. Boundaries, self-care, and emotional independence also make your presence more intentional. Instead of being available 24/7 or always ready to jump in and help, begin honoring your own time and energy. Say no to unreasonable demands, or simply let others wait when you're not available. This isn't about punishment, it's about equality. Just as your child has a life and priorities, so do you. Respecting your own time teaches others to do the same. Family dynamics expert Dr. Harriet Lerner notes that people who reclaim their emotional autonomy often experience a corrective shift in long-standing family patterns, where the old power imbalances begin to adjust naturally. If you're recovering from years of emotional dependency, be gentle with yourself. Change won't happen overnight. You may have been conditioned to believe that your value lies in how much you give or how well you're liked. But now, in this stage of life, you get to redefine your worth based on who you are, not what you do for others. That is the true gift of aging. The freedom to recenter your life around peace, fulfillment, and self-respect. The more you focus on becoming whole, the less you'll tolerate being treated as if you're less than. And your children will notice. Ultimately, reclaiming your authority is not about force. It's about becoming rooted in yourself so deeply that others have no choice but to meet you with the respect you command by simply being who you are. Emotional independence is not loneliness, bitterness, or detachment. It is strength, peace, and the quiet knowing that your worth has never needed permission to exist. And once you embrace that truth, your relationship with your children, and with yourself, can finally begin to transform. Seeking support and staying empowered is the final and often most essential step in regaining respect when you feel disregarded by your adult children. While it may feel like a deeply personal issue to be managed within the confines of your family, the truth is that countless seniors face the same challenge. Disrespect from adult children is more common than many realize, yet the silence surrounding it causes far too many to suffer alone. Breaking that silence begins by reaching out to peers, professionals, or support networks, where your experiences can be validated and your strategies refined. Research in geriatric mental health strongly supports the idea that social connection, community engagement, and psychological support significantly improve emotional resilience and self-worth, particularly in seniors navigating difficult family dynamics. Isolation breeds doubt and emotional erosion, while connection restores confidence and helps put things into perspective. You are not alone. And the moment you realize that, you start to reclaim not just respect, but your own strength. One of the most effective forms of support is connecting with others who are experiencing similar challenges. Whether through senior centers, community groups, online forums, or faith-based gatherings, peer support can be incredibly grounding. Sharing your story with someone who nods and says, "Me too," can be profoundly healing. It not only reminds you that your struggle is not unique, but it can also introduce new coping methods and healthier ways to navigate difficult conversations. Group settings can provide structured opportunities to role-play boundaries, rehearse calm responses, and build assertive communication skills. Seniors in such communities often report feeling more empowered and less emotionally dependent on validation from their children alone. The more sources of strength you cultivate, the less any single relationship defines your self-worth. In some cases, professional support may be necessary. If the emotional weight of disrespect becomes overwhelming, a licensed therapist or counselor, especially one who specializes in family dynamics or elder issues, can provide critical insight. Therapy is not just for the broken, it's for the brave. It gives you a safe, confidential space to unpack years of accumulated pain and to begin writing a new chapter for yourself. Counseling can also help you identify if there are patterns you've unconsciously contributed to, and how to change them going forward. This isn't about blame, it's about taking ownership of your growth, regardless of anyone else's choices. According to the American Psychological Association, Seniors who participate in therapy see marked improvements in mood, cognitive sharpness, and overall relationship satisfaction. The healing begins when you invest in yourself. Education is another overlooked form of empowerment. The more you learn about healthy communication, emotional regulation, and boundary setting, the better equipped you are to change toxic dynamics. Reading books, attending seminars, or watching lectures specifically geared toward family conflict, generational tension, or emotional independence can open your mind to new possibilities. Knowledge provides language for what you're experiencing and tools for what to do next. Turns confusion into clarity. The more informed you are, the less reactive you become. And when you stop reacting and start responding with grounded wisdom, the balance of respect begins to shift in your favor. Spirituality can also be a source of immense strength, whether you practice a formal religion or simply believe in a deeper sense of purpose. Connecting to something bigger than yourself can soothe the pain of disrespect and remind you that your value doesn't come from the approval of others, but from your very existence. Prayer, meditation, reflective reading, or spiritual mentorship can help reframe how you interpret your experiences. Instead of seeing your child's behavior as a personal failure, you begin to see it as their own journey, one that doesn't define your identity. Many seniors find that reconnecting with their spiritual roots brings a level of peace that no conversation can disrupt. Sometimes, staying empowered means creating physical and emotional distance. If repeated efforts to establish respect are met with hostility, you have every right to step back, not as a punishment but as a protective measure. Detaching with love means you still care, but you care for yourself just as much. You choose to stop participating in dynamics that cause harm. This might mean reducing the frequency of visits or calls, or simply changing the topics you're willing to discuss. You don't owe anyone unlimited access to your time or energy, especially if they continually disrespect it. This decision can be hard, but it often opens the door for reflection and growth on both sides. Empowerment also means reclaiming the narrative. Instead of seeing yourself as a parent who lost their child's respect, begin to see yourself as a person reclaiming their power. Shift your focus from what you can't control to what you can, your tone, your choices, your peace of mind. Use affirmations that reinforce your inner strength. Phrases like, "I am worthy of respect," "I choose peace over conflict," and "my value is not defined by others' behavior" are not just words. They are anchors in turbulent times. Psychology has long shown the power of self-talk in shaping mood and motivation. The more you speak to yourself with kindness and confidence, the less you'll internalize negativity from others. Another key element of staying empowered is celebrating small victories. If your child speaks to you with kindness, thanks you sincerely, or acknowledges a boundary even just once, recognize that as progress. Change often comes in small steps, not giant leaps. Celebrate your consistency in holding your ground, even if the other person hasn't changed yet. Acknowledge your own growth in how you handle conflict or distance yourself from drama. These small shifts are the building blocks of lasting change. They reinforce your self-respect and show you that your efforts are not in vain. Lastly, surround yourself with people who uplift you. Whether it's friends, relatives, neighbors, or new acquaintances, invest time in relationships that are mutual, respectful, and energizing. Let go of the belief that only your children can give you the love and affirmation you need. Love comes in many forms, and often, it's found in places you least expect. When you build a life that is full of supportive relationships, fulfilling activities, and emotional stability, you stop waiting for respect, you start radiating it. And in that energy, many people, your children included, begin to return to you not out of obligation, but out of admiration.